In this lesson, we'll introduce ourselves to static variables. We'll be looking at the difference between them and non-static variables, as well as how they relate to classes or scripts that are used multiple times in our game at once. We'll then make one final small edit to our tank shooting script that we've been using throughout this module. So to start off with, let's first learn what a static member is. Now, a static member is a member that is consistent across all instances of the class it was used in. What does this mean exactly? Well, let's break it down. First, the term member simply refers to either a method, function, or variable. And remember that a method is just another term for a function. Okay, so a function or a variable can be considered static, but what does it mean to be consistent across all instances of itself? Well, let's say we created a script called A. As we know, inside this script we have a class by the same name, which is now also called A. Let's also say that within class A we create an integer variable called number and set it to a value of 5. We then create two separate copies or instances of that class and script. In Unity we can do this by attaching the script to a game object twice, or attaching the script to two separate objects. Take our tanks for example. In our game there are always two tanks, both with their own individual instance or copy of the tank shooting script that we've been editing. Now, the number variable is currently a non-static member. This means that each instance of it is independent of each other. In other words, if we change the number variable in the first instance of our class to 10, the number variable in the second instance of our class would remain as 5. Now let's say that we wanted the value to stay the same across both instances of the variable. How might we change our script to do this? Well, we simply edit the variable in Visual Studio and write the keyword static just before we declare the data type of the variable. What this does is make the variable consistent across all instances or copies of our script in our game. In other words, if we were to now change the value of our number variable, that change would also be made to other instances of that variable. So now both classes contain a number variable with the value of 10. Okay, now that we understand static members a little bit, let's look at why we need to know how to use them. In the last lesson, you'll remember that we learnt about while loops and used them to prevent our script from playing the same audio clip twice in a row whenever a tank shell was fired. And it worked really well. We tested one of our tanks, fired a few shells, and each sound we heard was different from the last. However, watch what happens if I fire a shell from both tanks one after the other. Did you hear that? The same audio clip played twice, despite the fact that both tanks have the tank shooting script attached, and therefore both have a while loop re-randomizing which audio clip to play if it detects a repeat. So why did this happen? Well, because all of the variables in the tank shooting script are non-static, meaning that the values they hold will not be the same across all instances of it used in our game. So what does this mean? Well, you'll remember that we wrote our script to randomize the new index integer variable if it contained the same value as our last index variable. Every time we used the random.range function to pick a random number for the new index variable to hold, a different number is picked for each tank. So let's say the blue tank was told to play audio clip 2, and the red tank was told to play clip 3 shortly after, both chosen randomly of course. The last clip we heard, therefore, was shot firing 3. After the sounds had been told to play, the last index variable inside of the blue tank would be set to 2, but would be set to 3 for the red tank. Next, let's say that shortly after this, the blue tank fired one more shell. Now, thanks to our while loop and the last index variable in the script attached to the blue tank, the sound that is played cannot be audio clip 2, because that was the clip it played last. However, it can still play audio clip 3, so despite the fact that the clip we last heard was clip 3 from the red tank, there's a chance we could hear it immediately after from the blue tank. Okay, so how do we fix this? Well, it's simple really. We just need the last index variable to hold a shared value across the two instances of the tank shooting script that we are using, instead of it holding an individual value for each. So the way we do that is simply by making it static. So just in front of its data type, but after its access modifier, let's write the keyword static. And it's as easy as that. Now whenever either tank fires a shell, the new random index number chosen will be compared to the last number chosen by either tank. Okay, so now if we were to fire a shell from each tank one after the other, we should never hear the same clip repeated twice, no matter which tank fires the shell. And that is all we need to know for now about static variables and members. We've now learned the difference between a static and a non-static variable. Now in the case of these tanks, it wouldn't be the end of the world had we left the tank script as it was and not made last index static. There's room for a creative decision to be made here. As the audio implementer, you might decide that it's not essential that every single tank shot sounds completely different from the last. And if so, you might choose to leave last index as a non-static variable. But either way, I hope you now understand what a static variable is and what it means to be static. Hopefully you can also visualize this idea of multiple script instances a bit better now too, and see how this idea might affect your game. This could be something kind of confusing to new Unity users, so if you need to spend more time on it, then as always, feel free to check out additional resources for help. Now all that is left to do is to complete this module's challenge. So when you're ready, I will see you over there.